He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense. He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is, Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Lamb.
Yeah.
Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, and today I've got a very special guest to me. He was the first boss I ever had. He's a legend in the state of Georgia. He's retired now from coaching. He's stepped down from he was the president of GACA at one time. Coach Bobby McAllister, thanks for being with me.
Chris, glad to be here.
Well, Coach, how did I know you went to Georgia. You played golf at Georgia, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I played golf at South Georgia my first 2 years.
Okay.
Played golf at South Georgia and then got married and went to Georgia. And at that time, we were in the quarter system. And so I went to work since I was married to get out of Georgia as fast as I could. So I was taking like 23 hours a quarter. And so I finished the last 2 years in about a year and a quarter so I can go to work. And but my golfing was at South Georgia.
Okay, and when you came out, you just started coaching when you came out.
1970, went to Coffee Junior High School. John Stevens was the head coach.
Really?
John hired me, and I coached, started at Coffee Junior High School, was there for 2 years.
Where'd you go after that?
Went to Ware County. Jesse Dice had been at Fitzgerald, and Jesse got the Ware County job, and he gave me my first varsity job. I was coaching the defensive backs at Ware County.
How long did you stay there?
2 years, and then I got the head coaching job at Telfair County.
Really?
In 74, and I wasn't 25 years old, so I didn't know anything.
So you started coaching at 20. You graduated and were coaching at 21.
22. I was 22.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't have gotten the head coaching job. Maybe they just needed somebody. I don't know. But when you're young like that, you think you know a lot, but you didn't. I didn't know anything. But what I did know, I coached the devil out of it.
So at Telfair, your first head coaching job, how many guys do you have on staff? Do you remember?
About 3.
Did you just coach football, or did y'all have to coach everything back then?
No, I coached football and I coached golf, and didn't have to coach track or baseball or anything. We had that, but on the football staff there was either 3 of us or 4 of us. I can't remember right now. It wasn't a very big staff.
So how did y'all do? I mean,
we were 4-6 that year, and then I left and I got the head coaching job at Troup County. I stayed here 1 year at Telfair, but as it rolled back around in 1989, I got hired again at Telfair.
I remember that. Now, I want to talk about Troup because DT said you were his high school football coach,
yeah,
David Thrower.
And we were not very good. That didn't have anything to do with David. Number one thing was we were in a region that had Woodward Academy, and Lakeshore at the time was one of the top schools. Fayette County, Charlie Winslet was at Fayette County at the time in the same region. And so...
and that was back when just the top 2 went, right?
That was back when the region champion...
Or just the region champion went. So just one team went. So you could have been 9-1 and stay at home.
There was a lot of things that happened like that, and especially, I remember this, and this is one of the reasons why it changed. I remember that Cairo and Worth County, when Milt was at Worth County, Milt Miller was at Worth County, they both tied at 9-1. It became a region vote in a popularity contest.
A vote?
A vote. The region voted who was going to go into the playoffs. And so, depending on who you liked and who you didn't like, it was a little bit different back then. But my years at Troup was very tough, and but I learned a lot. When things are tough, if you don't learn anything, I learned how to coach, what things to do and not do. And at the time, it was very tough on me mentally. But as I went on and stayed in coaching and everything, and I would go back and see some of the mistakes and everything, but it still gets back to this, and no matter what, you got to have players. And the one thing that I learned in my 31 years of coaching is I would not mess up good players, and I couldn't coach bad players. And so that was the main thing. If you have a good one, just let him be good.
Yeah.
Not overcoach him.
So after Troop, where did you go after
I went
that?
to Oglethorpe County, and then I got out of coaching for a year and moved back home.
Because you're originally from Elberton, right?
Elberton. I moved back to Elberton. And then I stayed out of coaching for a year and went to Madison County as defensive coordinator. And I stayed there.
Who was your head coach there?
Van Rowe was the head coach. When I got there, Van had been the assistant coach, and the head coach had left and gone to North Gwinnett. And so Van got the job, and he hired me as defensive coordinator, and I stayed there 3 seasons. And then I got out of coaching again and bought a granite business in Elberton. And I thought, you're going to make a whole lot of money and be rich and have boats and cars and all that kind of stuff. And I learned more being in the business world in a year and a half than I ever did in school about coaching. The only thing I can tell you is I thought 4th and 1 on the goal line was pressure. But pressure is when you don't have money in the bank and it's 12 o'clock payroll to be paid. And but all of that helped. That when finally I decided that I was going to go back into coaching, and that's when I got came back to McRae.
When was Katie born?
She was born in '79.
Okay, so you were at Oglethorpe then? Okay.
I was at Oglethorpe, and but you learn a lot with all that, and so I look back on my coaching experience, and one of the things that happened is after the granite business deal, I decided that when I got back into coaching that I was not going to worry about a whole lot of things that I used to worry about, really get involved with the Coaches Association and not just do what the community needed for you to do, because at Telfair County, we couldn't do some of the things that they could do in Hazelhurst or Dublin or whatever. You had to do what McRae would do, and that's what I decided to do, and it worked out fine.
Yeah, y'all had a great run.
We did. We had a real good run. Of course, really excited about what happened this past year with Telfair. I mean, going to the semifinals, that was the best year that they had ever had. Was in '93. We went to the quarterfinals. We were 12 and 1, but this year, them going to the semifinals was really exciting. I know for Telfair, exciting for me to see, because it'd been over 30 years since that team.
Yeah, and Coach Burleson's a really good dude.
Yeah,
Matt's a good guy.
He's been here, 12 or 13 years in Telfair.
He's really invested.
Which is really great, yeah, and that's super. So my career was, the early part of it was not very satisfying, but the last 16 or 17 years I had ups and downs, but I was very fortunate at Telfair, and then, of course, real fortunate to go to Worth County, and we had some good years at Worth County, and then I finished up at ECI, and then it was time to put the ball down.
So in all of your travels and all of your times, who would you say was the best one you ever coached, or some of the best ones you ever coached, players?
Well, the best player I ever coached was LaFonso McLean from Telfair County, because he was the defensive player of the year in Class A in '93. And he went to Auburn. At Worth, we had, and I got all my assistant coaches, they get mad at me because I put all the good players on defense. But I mean, we had maybe 3 of the best linebackers.
Yeah.
Michael Fowler and Corey Brown and Alex. Well, I can't remember Alex's last name right now, but all 3 of those were good. James Murray, we moved him from fullback to linebacker his senior year, and I think he became all-region. So we had them, Janelle Buford, remember the big tackle that we had from Oakfield? He was really good, and so those players, I had some really good players, but LaFonso was probably the most outstanding. If you really want to get down to, he was a 4.3 guy. He intercepted 27 passes at Telfair, and he was special.
Well, who's the best you coached against?
Oh Lord, we coached against.
Or somebody that you just remember that you were like, oh, that guy was something serious to
Well,
deal
when I was
with.
in Madison County, we went in the playoffs against Chris Carter at Gainesville. And he was a pretty good quarterback, but he was also, he punted up above the lights. He was good. And gosh, there's been so many of them. Woodward Academy had a whole bunch of them, and I'm trying to think. Ed Pilcher, Joe Burns. We played
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah, he wasn't bad.
He wasn't too bad. No, Joe was a pretty good running back, and I think Gooseby was the other running back, and so Cairo had some great players. That region that we were in at Worth, I think it was in '99 preseason. There were 6 of us in the same region that was in the preseason top 10. Us, Crisp, Lee County, Doherty. Oh yeah,
Big John was there, had him running.
Had some great players and great teams over there. And plus, our outside games, we were playing Colquitt, Peach, and Tift.
Yeah, because you couldn't get any. Nobody didn't want any part of it. No.
We opened up when I got to Worth County. My first 3 games was Tift, Colquitt, and Peach County. That'll keep you awake at night.
Yeah, that's a problem. Them ram goats, they get fired up about that too. But I just remember one of my Worth County stories, because it was my first job. I was a community coach before I got there, but working middle school. So I sat up in the press box, and I remember we always shot the cannon off at kickoff. And we played Monroe, and they were not very good. And it had rained all day. So we get ready to play, and it was still kind of misty outside, and they had double packed that cannon to make sure it went off. So we kicked the ball off, and you could hear the play-by-play guys, and the cannon didn't go off. So we just assumed that, I don't even know if you remember this, but we just assumed that it didn't, they just couldn't fire it. So you hear the guys go, and he feels the kick at the 5. He's at the 10. He's at the 15. He's at the 20. And about that time, that cannon went off, and everybody from Monroe just hit the ground. So the kids down. We fall out of me and Coach Bell fell out of the seats. And it was.
Forget that the cannon was going to be fired.
Yeah.
That's scary. Scary, really.
But those Monroe kids hit the deck. And so, I don't know who got the credit for the tackle on that, but it was that was kind of funny. And the staff, that staff there was something serious. A lot of those guys have gone on to be head coaches.
Staff,
You had Cliff Hurd and Jeff Littleton and Brian Hill and the defensive coordinator was Neil Roberts. There was some studs on that side. You had Lee Hamner, Stacy Bell, and Tim Hathcock and Will. You had a freaking staff.
We really did. And the good thing about it was we were a very close staff. We did, everything together, and it seemed like every weekend we figure out some way to get together, and that's that's what staff should do.
I remember you took us down to Lake Seminole.
Lake Seminole.
Lake Seminole.
We had a couple of pre-season things down there.
We had a clinic, and then we came over here. You took us to Coach Stevens because we were putting in a split back veer. So, and he was at Alma. He was at Bacon County.
Yeah, we went over there.
And he cliniced us, and we went over there and did that. And I remember you used to tell us too. You were like, after the game, we'd get together at somebody's house, and you'd go, "All right, we're going to enjoy it, win or lose. We're going to get together, and when the sun comes up, it's over with. It's it. And then we'll get back together on Sunday, and we're going to go back to work. But once the sun comes up, I don't want to hear about it either way."
You had to do that to survive, really. From your own mental capacity during the season, and you got to have a short memory. And I think, Chris, that's one of the things that drives us all into retirement is our memory of if we lose on Friday night, it lingers on too long. You got to forget it.
You got to flush it and move on.
You got to flush it. The kids are going to flush it about 30 minutes. I think that's what upsets you more than anything. Because you put so much time into it. But all of those stops, I had great staff. I had great staff at Telfair. But the Worth County staff was probably as strong and as good and as close. And I'm really proud. Jeff Littleton just became the new head coach at Tift County. And he did a fantastic job at Bainbridge.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm really proud of Jeff and all of them. And, Cliff and Neil now retired. And, Scott Frederick, was with me at Telfair all those years. And then at the first few years at Worth, Scott was with me total of 11 years. And that's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Assistant. So we had a good time.
Yeah, good people, good, just relationships. I mean, and you've always been good to all of us. I mean, that's...
Well, I think that if always been my philosophy is if somebody's going to sacrifice for you, then you need to try to be as kind and good and enjoyable to your assistant, because we're all in the thing for the same reason. Now, they may be hollering my name from the stand because I'm the head coach, but everybody wants to win, and everybody's feels bad if we lose. And I think the thing that gets lost in everything, though, is what a sacrifice your family has to make in coaching, and especially your wives and children having to list some of the things that happens in the stands.
Yeah.
But, there's a bunch of coaches up there in the stand.
Oh, yeah, they know everything.
Yeah. And they know even more now that ESPN tells them exactly what's going on.
And then I remember, you took me to my first GACA coaches clinic, and it was Atlanta, and I was your driver, and we show up, and it was on the south side, right by that Ford plant, and the marquee said, "Welcome GACA and AAS," and I said, "Coach Mack, what's AAS?" And you said, I don't know, but it's a big place, so it could be anything. So we came around the corner, and the AAS was the Atlanta Area Swingers.
Yeah.
So they're all out in the pool
that was quite a clinic.
doing crazy and whatever. And you stopped, and you reached in your pocket and you grabbed a bunch of money, the play money, and you handed it to me, and you said, "Chris, go get beer," or whatever. You sent me to go to the store, get whatever you can get with this. And then you got your flip phone out, and you said, don't leave yet. And you called Miss Peggy, and you said, "Peggy, you're not going to believe this, but Chris is standing here next to me, so I want you to hear it from me, but you are not going to believe who they've got up here with us." And I was like, this is quite the mix of humans to have in one
place.
place.
There's a lot of GACA stories, but that's probably one of the rarest.
I was like, how in the world? So it's my very first clinic, and I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to be all the time.
Every year.
But I mean, they were doing their own thing, and we were doing our own thing. So it's not like we crossed paths, but it was just interesting.
Back when in the summer, we would just about have that clinic and go into season started about the next Monday.
Oh, yeah.
We'd be at practice.
Yeah, and we did the rules clinic then, and you made us all go, which was great, and we got to learn. And one of the things that I loved about you is you didn't make us go to anything. You wanted us to be there to fellowship, to meet people, and you would take us around and introduce us to people. And you were like, well, if you want to go to a session, go. I mean, you're going to do what I tell you to do, and you're going to learn what we do. But if you want to go learn something, go. Where some of these guys make their guys go sit down and do all this stuff. And to me, that just meant the world, because that's where I started networking and meeting people.
Well, I mean, that's the main thing is meeting people. I know, and, going back to that staff, too. I got to mention, I guess one of the better offensive line coaches I ever had was David Nard.
Yeah.
I hired David when he had hair. He interviewed with me. And I called him back up and offered him the job. And when he was interviewing, he had a full head of hair. When he showed back up for the job, he was bald-headed. He'd shaved his head. So, but David did a great job, and he was. He called me up this winter and wanted to know if I was going to the Nike clinic. And I said, why would I go to the Nike clinic? I don't have a team. And I said, why are you going to the clinic? You've never been to a lecture in your life. I could beat you to it. But David, he did a great job with offensive linemen. And the thing that was so good about David and all the other coaches too is they related to the kids. Kids love, all the offensive linemen love Nard. And so it was a good time. And There's some parts of coaching that I miss, but the way coaching is today, there's not a whole lot that I miss because it's changed so much.
Right.
Especially the work, bless all the coaches' heart. I mean, it's a 24/7, 365 day. I mean, there's 2 dead weeks now, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, and I guess the 2 big things to me in high school athletics today is that the coaches, because of huddle and the way films are swapped and all, they don't really get to know each other anymore, and then they don't have any downtime just to be
Right.
daddy and do whatever they want to do. They just don't have any downtime. They're dealing, and we spent a lot of time away from home before all that happened. But now, boy, it's really something.
Well, and a lot of these younger coaches too think that you've got to be grinding and working and spending all this time. And what's crazy, Coach, is we've got better technology now than we had then, which should make it where you don't have to spend as much time.
Well, it should be
doing.
easier. Yeah, you should to get ready.
I mean, one would think.
You're not having to break down a splice of film or.
You don't have to change the reels out.
I mean, all of a sudden, you'd be on the bus coming back from an out-of-town game, and you can have not only your film, but the swap for the next week.
We're not meeting at a random McDonald's or a gas station.
Or Shoney's or whatever.
Yeah. Which was back in the day was great because you got to meet people and sit down and.
I know before we would play Thomas County Central, I would meet up with Coach Pilcher and we'd have breakfast 2-3 hours and just talk about Friday night, talk about this and that. And that's how we got to be friends and know each other. And, then we try to beat each other the next Friday. But after that, I think that's what's lost.
Right.
In high school coaching today. And of course, there's so many other things that's happening with NIL and high school and people going to different schools. And now, not in the rural counties, like Elberton County, my hometown, and Washington Wilkes and places like that, they homegrown. But it's in the big cities and everything, you may have 14 or 15 leave your team after a year, but you're going to get 14 or 15 to come back in from someplace else.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know your roster.
Yes, it's like the colleges are now.
They don't know, they don't know the roster. And I don't think that's good. And I know that change is inevitable. And I know sometimes change is good. But I think that in athletics, we've kind of lost sight of really the important thing because what is it in college? 2% maybe going to play in the NFL. Well, what's the percentage that's going to go to the next level out of high school? That old 160-pound guard that comes to the weight room every day, working out, he's going to be loyal to his school. He's not going to go anywhere. He may come back and be principal or superintendent or whatever.
Just a good old kid.
Just a great
good youngin'. And what's he getting?
That's what high school ball's all about. It's really not the scholarship, but not everybody gets a scholarship.
Well, let's talk about your role in, when you transitioned into the GACA. You've always been active in it. Mm-hmm. And then, you've always, well, not always, but an officer and all that stuff. And then you got a chance to lead it.
Yeah.
So how was that? How did you enjoy your time doing that?
I really enjoyed it. It was at a tough time for our association. And when they asked me to do it, I told them the first thing was that I always thought that the model that Georgia High School had of having an assistant director was important. The GACA never had that. And I told them, I said, I'll take the job, but I want Craig Davis to be my assistant. And Craig had about 5 more years to retire. And I figured that at that time, 5 years would be about enough for me. But the 5 years that was there, we did a lot of good things, learned a lot about coaches associations and also about dealing with coaches, good and bad things. But the main thing is we had a strong organization. It had gotten really strong with Coach Broadway, with Ray Broadway doing it, and then we just kind of hit a bumpy road there, and so we had to work our way back through that. And I hired a great gal, and Tracy York, to be my secretary. So for those 5 years, we did some good things, and having Craig called me up about 6 months ago, and he said, "Bobby, how did you do all this stuff?" And I said, "Well, I had an assistant. What I didn't want to do, I gave it to you. You need to get an assistant." And Chris, it was a great 5 years, and the real strange thing is we kid about it, but when COVID hit, we had just had the Lee Murray golf. We were at Jekyll Island, and everybody was talking about COVID, but we really didn't know. And we get back home, and 3 days later, the world shuts down.
Yeah.
I mean, literally 3 days later. And I'll never forget, we had our all-star basketball game that was supposed to be played the next weekend. And on that Tuesday, nothing was shutting down, but there was talk about it. And Craig and I talked about it. I said, "What do we need to do?" I said, "We don't need to be bringing in some juniors and senior boys and girls together with this COVID thing." And so we canceled it. And I got a little criticism for that on that Tuesday when I canceled it. And then on Wednesday, they shut everything down. So it kind of made me feel good that we made the right decision. But that was an interesting time as far as the Coaches Association and dealing with athletics, because everything just shut down. And but those 5 years that I did that, I really enjoyed it. And Craig is now doing a fantastic job.
And now you're still around. I mean, we're at the Lee Murray Golf Tournament now at Little Okmulgee and McRae.
Yeah.
That's where we're doing this now.
Yeah.
And I know you play in golf. You live in Thompson. You around your grandbabies and doing that, but you're still active with the GACA.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
still very involved.
Craig wanted me to continue running the Hall of Fame that we have in the end of May, 1st of June. And so I'm that coordinator for that. And Craig can, if he has anything he wants to talk to, he can kind of run things by me, and I can kind of head him in one direction or another, because there's a lot of different aspects with corporate and all that kind of stuff that you have to talk about. But I'm involved with that, and see, when we quit giving the SDUs for the Lee Murray, I ran the Lee Murray golf for 13 or 14 years, and then John Willoughby took over. And I asked him to do that because that was about the time, just right before I became executive director of the GACA. So it's been, I've enjoyed it. I've been state football chairman. I've been president of the association. I love the GACA, and I want it to succeed. And Craig's doing a fantastic job. He's come up with some new ideas. I mean, we've got almost 8,000 members now, which is really good. We're a strong organization, one of the strongest organizations in the country.
That's awesome. I know that, you instilled that in us, to get involved and be a part of it and come to whatever they had and stuff like that when we were young coaches. And, it's just awesome to get to see everybody come into this golf tournament. I remember as a younger coach, when you were running the golf tournament, nobody called it the Lee Murray. They called it Bobby Mack's golf tournament. And then nobody, it got lost that it was actually called the Lee Murray golf tournament. It was because it was in McRae, it was here for a lot of years. And people would just call it the Bobby Mack tournament. And
the thing that was fun today is we played with Lee Murray's son-in-laws.
Yeah.
And they did not know Lee. And so they were asking us questions about Lee. And I said, well, he was quite a character, and some of the things that he did was he always wanted everybody to enjoy themselves and have a good time. And we've got this golf tournament named after him, and we have the Lee Murray Award that we give at the Hall of Fame. So Lee was quite a character. He really was. And enjoy being here, and I think that Coach Willoughby's doing a great job of keeping it going.
Well, over your 31 years, I'm sure you've come across a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
Really, there's no greater fraternity than coaches. It's the best fraternity in the world.
Well, Coach, I'm so glad that you brought me into the fraternity, and I appreciate everything you've ever done for me. And, I called you on the way to Orlando last year to thank you for that, and I appreciate you sitting down and taking some time with me and being on this with me today.
Well, Chris, I appreciate it. It's always good to still be wanting to do something. And I love coaching. I love the GACA. I love this tournament. And anytime that I can do anything for you or anybody else, I'll be glad to do it, because to serve is the best thing that we can do in life. And I appreciate you having me on here.
Well, thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.